हरिप्रिय वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयं मुदीरयेत्। सर्वशास्त्राब्धिपीयूषः सर्ववेदैकसत्फलः सर्वसिद्धान्तरत्नाढ्य सर्वलोकैकदृक्पद सर्वभागवतप्राणः श्रीमद्भागवत प्रभो कलिध्वान्तोदितादित्य श्रीकृष्ण परिवर्तितः परमानन्दपाठाय प्रेमवर्षक्षरायते सर्वदा सर्वसेव्याय श्रीकृष्णाय नमोऽस्तु मे। मदेकबन्धो मत्सङ्गिन् मद्गुरो मन्महाधन मन्निस्तारकमद्भाग्य मदानन्द नमोऽस्तु ते। असाधु साधुतादायिन् अतिनीचोच्चतारक हानमुञ्च कदाचिन्मां प्रेम्णा रथकण्ठयोः स्फुर। श्रीमद्भागवत महापुराण की। हरे कृष्ण। So today we will continue our discussion from 10th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, from where we left off yesterday. We have begun the discussion from 10th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, which is departure of Lord Krishna for Dwaraka. So yesterday we began this chapter and we have seen till verse 6. This is the chapter which is describing Lord Krishna's departure towards departure from Hastinapur for Dwarka. So we saw that how in the first verse Shaunak Uvach, Shaunak Muni asked two questions about how did Yudhishthir Maharaj rule, how was he ruling, Katham Pravruttaha, and also what all activities did he do, Kim Akarashit Tatha. So these two questions were asked in the first verse of this chapter, so which Sud Goswami began to answer. So first he spoke about how Lord Krishna was very happy to have Yudhishthir become the king, and Lord felt kritakritya. Lord was really feeling that he has accomplished his task by putting Yudhishthir as the king of the entire world. So after this, from verse 3 onwards, he answered the question about Katham Pravruttaha. How was Yudhishthir's kingdom? How did he rule? So especially this is talked about first he being an autocratic monarch who followed instructions of Bhishma Dev and Lord Krishna, and that's how he ruled the entire earth, exactly like comparison was given Indra by taking ashray of Upendra Vamana, how he was ruling all the celestial planets. So similar, Yudhishthir was ruling this earth. And then 3 verses after that, verse 4, 5, 6, starting from Kamam Vavarsha Parjanya, we saw that they described how Yudhishthir's kingdom was very prosperous and it was free of any Adi Bhautika, Adi Daivika or Adhyatmik kleshas. So that was Yudhishthir's kingdom. And now going forward from verse 7 onwards, which we'll see today, there is description of Lord's departure, which is another very important section in this chapter. So what is happening here is, from this verse, the second question asked by Shaunak, Kim Akarashit Tata, what were Yudhishthir's activities? What did he do thereafter? Actually, in order to answer this, first the context that Lord Krishna was departing and then he was being received in Dwarka is spoken by Sud Goswami. So literally speaking, Yudhishthir's activities and all, they talk about that gets suspended for this chapter and even the next chapter. Even birth of Emperor Parikshit is after that, 10, 11, 12. So acharyas do comment that literally speaking, kim akarashit tata, what did Yudhishthir do thereafter, after becoming the king? This actually gets discussed in his activities in chapter 13. But as an important prelude to that, actually, and as a context is there, Lord's departure and Lord's reception is being discussed. So we'll see this as it's being commented in verse 8 by Acharyas. But that's how we begin with this chapter, begin with this particular section. So this is text 7. This is the second section of this chapter. Text 7. Ushitva hastina pure masan katipayan harihi surdam cha vishokaya swasuscha priyakamyaya. Translation. Sri Hari, Lord Sri Krishna, resided at Hastinapur for a few months to pacify his relatives and please his own sister, Subhadra. So this is being talked about after the events of the Kurukshetra war took place. So Bhagavan Harihi Katipayan Masan Hastinpure Ushitva. Ushitva is after residing. So this verse is, actually will get completed in the next verse. After residing, and then Ratham Aruroha, the next verse. He now got on a chariot to leave. That is the next verse. So what this verse is talking about is Lord Hari spent several months in Hastinapur after the Kurukshetra war. And why did he stay? The reasons are also spoken, 2 reasons. Suridam cha vishokaya swasuscha priyakamyaya. So it is said that to pacify his relatives, his Surits, because they had undergone great tribulation, great distress in the Kurukshetra war. So to pacify them, and especially to pacify Yudhishthir, and Swasuscha Priyakamyaya, also his Swasa, the sister, which is Subhadra, in order to please her, in order to pacify her, Priyakamyaya, Priyakamya means Priyasyaishanam, means actually pacifying or pleasing, Santvana, doing consoling of someone by pleasing words. So for these 2 reasons, especially, this verse explains that Lord stayed for many months after the Kurukshetra war. So we see that we yesterday had discussed about this, how Kurukshetra war, Lord stayed back in the episode where Ashwathama was captured. Then after that, Uttara was saved, and Kunti's prayers, and Lord accompanying all the Pandavas to Bhishma Dev, all that. So in this manner, he has spent quite a considerable amount of time after Kurukshetra war. Katipayan Masan, several months he has spent. He also got Ashwamedh Yajnas done for Yudhishthir, 3 Ashwamedh Yajnas. So it must have taken several months that Lord stayed after Kurukshetra war, and now he was ready to depart from Dwarka. Especially his staying was for Surudam cha Vishokaya, as it is written over here. So Prabhupada says in purport that he says, this is 3rd line, the Lord decided to stay especially to pacify the aggrieved king as well as to please Subhadra. So these two reasons, as the verse is mentioned, pacify his relatives and especially King Yudhishthir, and also to please Subhadra, who was sister of Lord Krishna, youngest of the children of Devaki and Vasudeva, Subhadra. And she was very dear to Lord. She was a very tender-hearted woman, and Krishna was very affectionate to Subhadra. So when Subhadra lost her son Abhimanyu, only son, in the Kurukshetra war, she was devastated because Abhimanyu was just a young boy, and his son was actually not even born. He was there in the womb of Queen Uttara, Princess Uttara, and that's how when he was killed as a young boy, and even in a very ghastly way, as we know that 7 Maharath is getting together to kill Abhimanyu. So Subhadra was very much devastated. She was feeling very extremely despondent. So that's why Lord, especially it is mentioned that Lord stayed back to pacify her, as he was extremely affectionate towards towards Subhadra as well as Draupadi. Acharyas do mention that. So in this way, Prabhupada says towards the end, the Lord is always pleased to satisfy his devotees in any capacity. Only his devotees can play the parts of his relatives. So actually, because these are his devotees, so Lord was extremely affectionate towards them and reciprocating their love. So point is that Krishna, he is moved by devotion. He reciprocates with the devotion. And that's how, because these were great devotees. So Lord changed his plan and stayed back to pacify them and to please them. So that is what is being talked about in this verse. Okay, so now after staying like this, Ushitva, having decided, now he was ready to leave. So that is spoken in this verse. This is text 8. Amantrya chabhyanudnyatah parishvajjabhivadyatam aruroha ratham kaischit parishvakto bhivaditah. Translation. Afterwards, when the Lord asked permission to depart, and the king gave it, the Lord offered his respects to Maharaj Yudhishthira by bowing down at his feet, and the king embraced him. After this, the Lord, being embraced by others and receiving their obeisances, got onto his chariot. Yes. So in this manner, after staying for some months in Hastinapur, now Lord was ready to depart. And so, amantrya cha abhyanudnyatah. Amantrya means prishtva, asking or having asked. So he asked Yudhishthir's permission. Yudhishthir was his senior cousin, and Lord Krishna always treated him as a senior, because Yudhishthir was even in age 3 years elder to Lord Krishna. Jiva Goswami says that. So because he was a senior to Lord Krishna, so although Lord is supreme, but in his manner of acting like in worldly ways, so he always treated Yudhishthir with great reverence. So he sought the permission of King Yudhishthir to leave, and he also received the permission. Abhyanudnyatah, he was allowed, so Abhyanudnyatah, he was given permission to leave. So tam amantrya abhivadya. So Lord, he asked the permission, he received the permission. So he bowed down at the feet of Yudhishthir. And Yudhishthir embraced the Lord, Parishvajja. So Parishvajja is from Yudhishthir's side and Abhivadya is from Lord's side. Amantrya is from Prishtva, asking, is from Lord's side, and Abhyanudnyata is from Yudhishthir's side. So in this manner, when Lord bowed down, Yudhishthir, he embraced the Lord, because Lord was leaving. And in this manner, Ratham Aruroha, Lord, he ascended to the chariot now to leave for Dwaraka. So before he was ascending on the chariot, Kaishchit Parishvakto Kaihi Abhivaditah. By some, Kaihi Parishvaktah. He was embraced by some, and Kaihi Abhivaditah. He was also bowed down, he was offered obeisances by some, because we understand that there were some equals to Lord, some seniors to the Lord, and some were his subordinates or juniors. So Yudhishthir embraced the Lord, and also Parishvakta refers to Arjuna and Bhima. They also embraced the Lord, because Arjuna is as good as in the age, he is equal to Lord Krishna, or as per Mahabharata, he is just 6 months younger to Lord Krishna, while Bhima is 1 year elder to Lord Krishna. You know, Bhima is 1 year elder to Lord Krishna. So in this manner, we see that Bhima as well as Arjuna embraced the Lord, and Nakul Sahadev, they are three years younger to the Lord. So they naturally offered their obeisances, Nakul and Sahadev. In turn, when they offered obeisances, Lord embraced them, because a superior can embrace a subordinate if he wishes from his side. So in this manner, there were exchanges of all these different manners with all these devotees of the Lord this way. So now Lord was ready to leave after exchanging greetings with all his devotees. So Prabhupada says in purport, third line, that the Lord takes pleasure when some of his devotees accept him as less important in terms of love. Actually, no one is greater than or equal to the Lord, or samodva, but he takes pleasure in being treated as younger than his devotees. These are all transcendental pastimes of the Lord. So it's the nature of the Lord, actually. He is a very humble soul. Although he is the supreme Lord, he is also governed by a great humility. Especially when it comes to his devotees, he always wants to consider himself as less important. That's just his nature, very special nature. Usually, people of the material world want to show their superiority. They want to be supercilious, want to show that nature of they being superior to others. But the most, greatest personality, Vibhu, the uh, the Supreme Lord, he has a nature where he always takes a very humble position in front of his devotees. So Prabhupada also says the impersonalist cannot enter into the supernatural roles played by the devotee of the Lord. So actually, seeing these dealings and all very interesting. Sometimes in commentaries of Mahabharata, people draw very different conclusions by Lord's dealings with people in a very humble way, like Lord is dealing with Nakula Sahadeva, or how he's touching Yudhishthir's feet. So there are some mundane commentators, they get into very different discussions by this, that why Lord was bowing down to somebody, and why he was being offered respect by somebody. So they give all mundane interpretations of that. So most of these are impersonalists, actually, who cannot fathom what's happening there, because they don't understand the ideal of devotional service. So Prabhupada is referring to that. These people are like Prabhupada used to give example of honey bottle. So if a honey bottle is the lid is not open, you can just outside see the honey from outside, but nobody can taste it, right? So licking a honey bottle from outside will not give any taste. So similarly, these people are like that. They are actually not able to enter into pastimes of the Lord. That why Lord behaves in this particular manner, because they don't understand that Krishna is a person, and he is ruled by personal emotions. So if you don't understand it, then it's very difficult to see. what are his activities. So in this manner, Prabhupada also addresses that now. Okay, fine. So the effect of Lord's departure, two verses explained right now, 8 and 9 explained about how Lord was ready to leave. Now, few verses will describe the effect of Lord's departure on the devotees over there who were present there. So this is text 9 and 10. Subhadra Draupadi Kunti Virata Tanaya Tatha Gandhari Dhritarashtrascha Yuyusu Gautamo Yamau Vrukodarascha Dhaumyascha Striyo Matsya Sutadayah Na Sehire Vimuhyanto Viraham Shangadhanvanaha. At that time, Subhadra, Draupadi, Kunti, Uttara, Gandhari, Dhritarashtra, Yuyutsu, Kripacharya, Nakula, Sahadeva, Bhimasena, Dhaumya, and Satyavati all nearly fainted because it was impossible for them to bear separation from Lord Krishna. So all these people, when Lord was leaving, they had surrounded the Lord, Pandavas and Yudhishthir and Subhadra, Draupadi, Kunti, and all of them. And what was the effect of Lord departing on them is explained here. Who all were present there? Subhadra, Draupadi, Kunti, Virat Tanaya, who is Virat Tanaya, Uttara, Virata's daughter, King Virata's daughter, Gandhari, Dhritarashtra's wife, Dhritarashtra himself, Yuyutsu. Yuyutsu was one of the sons of Dhritarashtra, born from a Vaishya wife, one of the Dasis. So this was Yuyutsu. And Yuyutsu, as you know, just before the war began, just before the war, Yuyutsu decided to side on the Pandavas. He decided to come on the side of the Pandavas. Although he was a Kaurava, he was born of Dhritarashtra. But then he decided that he should be on the side of Dharma. Actually, out of the sons of Dhritarashtra, Yuyutsu and Vikarna, they were two virtuous sons. So Yuyutsu decided to fight the war from the side of Pandavas. Although Vikarna was also virtuous, but Vikarna, he decided to be loyal to his brother. And that's how he fought from the side of Kauravas, Vikarna. So this is Yuyutsu, and he also was feeling a great separation from Lord as Lord was leaving. Gautama, Yamo. So Gautama is Kripacharya because he comes in he's grandson of Gautama Muni. Yamo is Nakula and Sahadeva. These are Yamo. Then Vrukodara. Vrukodara is Bhima, Dhaumya, priest of Pandavas, and also other ladies. Many other ladies were there. Matsya Suta Dayaha. So Matsya Suta, this is Satyavati, Vyasadev's mother. Or Matsya Suta can also refer to Uttara, because Uttara was the daughter, or rather the princess of Matsya kingdom, Virata's kingdom. So Matsya Suta can also refer to Uttara. Of course, if you say Virat Tanaya is Uttara, then how Matsya Suta is also, again, how she is counted twice. So Sridhar Swami says she is counted twice because her grief was extremely poignant. It was extremely pinpricking because she got just so emotional because Lord had saved her child, Parikshit, by entering into her womb. So she was feeling acute separation. She just remembered the whole incident, how Lord was leaving for the last time, and she approached calling out the Lord to save her, and especially to save her womb. So she remembered that episode, and that's how her grief was extremely sharp there. So that's why she is also counted twice. That's also one of the meanings that Sridhar Swami gives. So what happened to all of them? Na sehire vimuyyanto. Actually, they couldn't tolerate viraham na sehire. They couldn't tolerate the separation of the Lord. Vimuhyanta. In fact, they become bewildered. Vimuhyanta is kartavyatam ajanantah. What is to be done? Kim kartavya, kim kartavya modha. You know, what is to be done? Lord is leaving. You know, what to do? In this way, they were completely bewildered. They didn't want Lord to leave, but at the same time, they knew that now Lord is leaving. You know, he has stayed for many months, and now he was going to leave. So they were completely bewildered, and they couldn't tolerate the separation of Supreme Lord. Sharngadhanvana Shang, Lord, that's the bow. Shang bow, Lord holds in his hand. So that's one of the names of Lord Krishna. So if you see, in this, Gandhari and Dhritarashtra are also counted. So actually, Gandhari and Dhritarashtra, especially after the war, uh, both of them were very angry with Krishna and Pandavas. But then we know that episode also uh, where the actual time to take the power from Dhritarashtra came and Pandavas were called. So that time Dhritarashtra was happy to see Yudhishthir, although he was very sad that his sons were killed, but because Yudhishthir was Ajatashatru. So he was very happy to see Yudhishthir and he embraced all the Pandavas. But when time came to embrace Bhima, then we know that Lord Krishna immediately put forward, asked Bhima that the iron statue that Duryodhan had of Bhima, to practice. So that statue was put forward to uh, Dhritarashtra, and Dhritarashtra embraced that statue, and by his embrace, he powdered it. That iron statue was completely powdered. So after this incident, actually, Dhritarashtra breaks down and starts crying very much, saying that although his sons were from the Dharma side, he is so angry and he was in a lamentable condition. He was so much in a lamentable condition that he felt great remorse on his anger, and because he knew that actually Pandavas were virtuous. So after that particular incident, we see that Gandhari as well as Dhritarashtra soon gave up their animosity, and by staying with all the Pandavas and other great devotees of the Lord, even Dhritarashtra and Gandhari, it is said here that they could not tolerate the separation of the Lord. That was the transformation that occurred amongst them also. So this is how they also felt the separation from the Lord. So Srila Prabhupada in purport talks about the separation that the devotees feel. He says, Lord Shri Krishna is so attractive for the living beings, especially for the devotees, that it is impossible for them to tolerate separation. The conditioned soul under the spell of illusory energy forgets the Lord, otherwise he cannot. The feelings of such separation cannot be described, but it can simply be imagined by devotees only. So actually, the great separation that devotees feel from the Lord is topic of Srimad Bhagavatam at so many places, right? We see that this separation, feeling of separation from the Lord is echoed in many of the episodes of Srimad Bhagavatam. Mother Earth prays in the first canto only in the ahead chapters, talking to Dharma. Kava saheta viraham purushottamasya premavaloka ruchirasmitaval gujalpai स्थैर्यं समानमहरन् मधुमानिनीनां रोमोत्सवो mama yad anghrivitam. He talks about who can actually tolerate the separation from the Lord. By his loving glance and by his sweet words, by his smiles, even those who were great mani, great temperamental vibes of him, even their equanimity of the mind, their sthairiam, aharat, he was able to take away. such was his smile and such was his speaking words that the passionate wrath and the feeling of pride that was there. I mean, this is transcendental pride that was there in his vibes. He could smash that. He could take away by just one glance of his or by smile of his. So such a Lord, he has left us. So Mother Earth is saying, who can tolerate the separation from the Lord? Or even Uddhava prays in third canto, he says that Yam yogina samsprashayanti samyak yogena tastad viraham sahed. He says to Vidura that actually who can tolerate the viraha of the Supreme Lord? So in this manner, we see that especially after having separation, having union with Lord Krishna, the separation that Bhagavatam describes of his devotees, of Lord's devotees, is very acute, very intense, like that. Even a momentary separation is very extremely difficult for such devotees. We see even Lord Chaitanya prays Yuga itam nimeshena chakshusha pravishaitam shunya itam jagat sarvam govinda virahenam. Or even gopis pray in the Gopi Gitam, Atati Yad Bhavan Vannikananam Truti Yugayate Tvamabashyatam Kutila Kuntalam Shri Mukham Chate Jada Udikshatam Pakshmakrudrasham. So you see, I mean, this separation is a constant theme in Srimad Bhagavatam. It's difficult for us sometimes to imagine this kind of separation and the feelings, because we have not experienced that kind of association of the Lord and that intensity or bliss of the association. Of course, in this time of Corona, probably some of you who are not getting darshan of the Lordships, you might be really feeling a great separation from Supreme Lord, and you can understand somewhat experience that separation. Devotees are so eager to see Shri Radha Vrindavan Chandra, but somehow they're not getting that darshan. Darshan in presence of the Lord, personally coming in front of the Lord. So what I'm trying to say is, Acharyas give example that one who has the jewel, if he loses the jewel, then he understands the importance, or rather he cries piteously, he laments very piteously, because he had the jewel and he lost it. But if somebody doesn't have the jewel only, then he will not understand why the person is crying so much, because he doesn't have the jewel. Or if somebody doesn't understand the value of the jewel also, then also he will not understand what the great loss is when that jewel is gone. So similarly, in order to experience a great separation from the Lord, first of all, one has to experience that great intensity in association of the Lord. Then one will be able to actually also feel the separation. So if we don't feel separation from the Lord, I included, each one of us who is trying to be a sadhaka, we may feel separation from our devotee son, Lord, to some degree. But if we don't have a great feeling of separation, especially when we are put outside the association and some unavoidable circumstances has caused it, so we see that probably it's the case that we are not taking association that seriously. So that's how even the separation is not experienced, because in the association we might be taking it very much for granted. So these are the devotees who actually have stayed with the Lord, and that's how they feel a very, very great separation. Prabhupada says, next line in the purport, after his separation from Vrindavan and the innocent rural cowherd boys, girls, ladies, and others, they all felt shocked throughout their lives. And the separation of Radha Rani, the most beloved cowherd girl, is beyond expression. So the separation of residents of Vrindavan is such a heart-rending subject. When Lord was leaving Braja to go to Mathura, we know that how gopis, they stopped the chariot and they literally said that actually you cannot go. If you have to go, you let the chariot roll over us and you cross us, let us be dead, and you can cross our dead bodies and then leave. So we know this expression of great separation that the Vrindavan Brajvasis and especially Gopis, and in that also Srimati Radharani has expressed. Once they met at Kurukshetra during a solar eclipse, and the feeling which was expressed by them is heart-rending. So what to speak of this great description of Kurukshetra, meeting of the Lord at Kurukshetra. So this was after some time after Lord had departed for Mathura. This is there in 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. You must have read also. And this was after some time when Lord had left for Mathura, that Vrajvasis and Dwarkavasis, Lord Krishna, all of them met at Kurukshetra at the time of solar eclipse. So such is actually the emotional appeal of these pastimes, that you see even Shukdev, out of madness of that love of separation, he spoke this pastime not in the orderly manner. He spoke the pastime of meeting at Kurukshetra after Balramji is going for pilgrimage, when actually the order is not like that. Lord and Brajvasis met at Kurukshetra before, and Balramji is going to pilgrimage is much later, because that is happening when Kurukshetra war had begun. So, but you see, if the pastime, you see Balramji is going to pilgrimage is mentioned first, and Kurukshetra was mentioned later. Meeting at Kurukshetra is mentioned later. So this is, Sanatana Goswami says, this is the effect that is happening on even Shukdev Goswami, that he is not getting the order. So Sanatana Goswami says, for the readers, let me set the right order, and then Sanatana Goswami gives the right order in his Brihat Vaishnava Toshani of how the pastimes happened actually, like that. So this Kurukshetra episode is also another amazing episode where Lord's separation from all the Brajvasis is it's such a emotional expression actually. This Jiva Goswami goes in great details to explain this. It's amazing. When after so many days of Lord being outside of Braja, when Yashoda saw finally Krishna and Balram at Kurukshetra, Yashoda was sitting on a cart which was covered with curtains, a bullock cart, and it was area of the women where they stay. So she was staying with all the women, Braja women, and Lord Krishna and Balram took permission and went to meet Yashoda. And first time when Yashoda is seeing Krishna Balram after so many years of being away from Braja, that expression, Jiva Goswami says, is beyond expression. She produced a river of tears that Devaki and all others started wondering how this Yashoda, who has become such a thin lady because of Lord Krishna's viraha, is producing a river of tears. It was practically like a river is flowing from there, So there Devaki feels that what affection I can give to Lord Krishna actually. My affection to giving my affection to Lord Krishna, Devaki feels it is like a farmer's attempt to water a field when the monsoon rain is pouring down. When the monsoon rain is pouring down, what need is there for a farmer to, by some well, little bit of well, trying to water the fields. So she feels like that. Varshiki yadi bhaved ghanavali, sa ek pali bhi alam krishi vaje. She says that there. So that's a very wonderful episode. And then what to speak of gopis? It's just beyond description, that episode of Kurukshetra. Just by fragrance of Krishna's body, from the direction Krishna came, the fragrance of Krishna's body, gopis fainted actually, just by that air that carried the fragrance of Lord Krishna. For a long time they fainted. Jiva Goswami ends that episode by saying that the promise of Krishna that Aya say, I will come back to Vraja, while Nanda and everybody was leaving to back to from back from Mathura to Vraja, Krishna said to them, Ayase, I will come back. That promise, that creeper bore leaves and fruits in Kurukshetra, you know, the Brajvasi's expectation that Krishna will surely come. It bore its fruit in Kurukshetra, and finally it blossomed completely and became bedecked with all the fruits when Lord Krishna actually returned back to Vraja after killing Dantavakra. You know? So it turned into a full-blown tree. You know, and Lord Krishna finally went back to Vraja after killing Dantavakra and spend 2 months over there in Vraja. So these are actually a great feeling of separation, and they are not us for us just to hear and appreciate, but they are also for us to actually hanker for as we go ahead in devotional service in this particular manner. Okay, so 2 more verses. Satsangan mukta dussango hatum notsahate buddha kityamanam yasho yasya sakradakarnya rochanam tasminyastadhiya partha saheran viraham katham darshana sparsha samlapa shayanasana bhojanaihi. The intelligent who have understood the Supreme Lord in association with pure devotees and have become freed from bad materialistic association can never avoid hearing the glories of the Lord, even though they have heard them only once. How then could the Pandavas tolerate his separation? For they had been intimately associated with his person, seeing him face to face, touching him, conversing with him, and sleeping, sitting, and dining with him. So, na sehire viraham shangadhanvana. They could not tolerate the separation from the Lord. Why they could not tolerate the separation from the Lord is spoken in these 2 verses. These 2 verses talk about why they could not tolerate the separation. And this is spoken with a kaimutya nyaya. Kaimutya nyaya, we will see. What to speak of, kim uta, that is in this manner it is spoken. So, satsangat mukta dussango hatum no sahate buddha kirtyamanam yasho yasya sakradakarnya rochanam. Sud Goswami is saying that Supreme Lord whose glories, even if somebody hears once, hearing the glories of the Supreme Lord just once, such sweet glories of the Lord, they are so pleasing that if somebody hears them in the association of devotees, satsanga, muktadussango, such a person will become soon free from all the evil elements, bad qualities, like kama, lobha, moha, krodh, and all that. He will become free from envy, he will become free from lust. If he hears this qualities, this fame, name of the Lord in the association of devotees. And such person will never want to give it up. He doesn't want to give up hearing these activities. Hatum na utsahate buddha. Such intelligent person, never ever he wants to give up, hearing such wonderful qualities of the Supreme Lord. So if this is the case with somebody who has even heard Lord's qualities in the association of devotees, he doesn't want to give up the association. He doesn't want to give up hearing those pastimes. Then what to speak of kaimutya kim uta? Then what to speak of tasmin nyastadhiya partha? What to speak of those people like Partha, like Pandavas, who had placed their heart, placed their nyastadhiya, they had placed their intelligence or given their mind, as Prabhupada says, they had placed their hearts, minds into the lotus feet of the Lord. Katham viraham saheram. How could they tolerate the separation? Somebody who has even heard Lord's glories, he has not associated with Lord. He has just heard the Lord's glories in association of wonderful devotees. Even such a person can't give up association and hearing the glories. Then what to speak of these people who have stayed with the Lord, and darshana sparsha samlapa shayanasana bhojanai, they have seen the Lord personally. They have touched the Lord. They have conversed with the Lord. Shayana, they have slept with the Lord. They have asana. They have been sitting with the Lord. They have dined with the Lord. They have eaten with the Lord. So how could such people, experience? How could such people tolerate the separation in this manner? He is speaking this particular verse like that. You know. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in the explanation of this verse says that satsangat mukta dusango. Actually, the association of devotees will only help one to get rid of all the bad qualities like hatred, raga, dvesha, and envy, and all that. Unless and until one hears in the association of devotees, it will not have much effect. Hmm? So disappearance of bad qualities and this desire not to give up Lord's hearing Lord's glories anytime will only happen if somebody hears in the association of devotees, in a submissive manner. Otherwise, somebody may hear the qualities of the Lord, but bhagavatah yashaha rochakam dyustyajam na bhavati. Satsanga vina, without satsanga, actually Lord's glories will not be rochakam, they will not become very pleasing, and dustyajam, they will also not be difficult to give up. Person actually will go back to his material life once the glories are over, if he is not in the association of devotees and if he is not hearing submissively. So this is implied. So it's very important. Sometimes we see that there are professional Bhagavatam reciters and people hear from them Krishna Katha, and they are such expert people. They make people these Bhagavatam reciters, they make the audience cry, they make the audience laugh, get up and dance, and whatnot. They bring out all the emotions. They talk about separation of the Lord and people start crying, and then the katha gets over. These people go back and there is India Pakistan cricket match and India loses, and then these people cry there also. So they have been crying when Krishna was leaving Vraja, and they cry when then when India loses the cricket match also. So what's happening over here? Bhagavataha yash rochakam dustyajam na bhavati. So although any amount of Krishna Katha heard is surely for some benefit, but we are talking about the real benefit of bhakti, real benefit of Krishna Katha. So why this is not happening with them is because they are not hearing in the right association of people who are eager to actually experience the Lord and uh, serve the Lord in this particular manner. So that's why association is very, very important. We can't have this insane idea that we can stay away from the association and we can hear the glories of the Lord and then that's enough. No. So we can appreciate the Lord only when we associate and hear from those who truly appreciate the Lord. So that's why Vallabhacharya says in the explanation of this verse that this is why Nyastadheya, great or intelligent people, they keep the jewels of their intelligence, buddhi ratnam bhagavati sthapayanti, he says. Actually, this jewel of our intelligence or jewel of our consciousness, we shouldn't give it to any Tom, Dick, and Harry. We shouldn't give it to the mundane subject matters, but we should try to place them in this wonderful topic of Krishna Katha. Buddhi Ratnam Bhagavati Sthapayanti. Just as if you have great jewels, Vallabhacharya says, if you get a wonderful casing, Samichina Petika. So just as you have many wonderful jewels, you want to keep them in one very wonderful casing, which is safe. Similarly, for a devotee, Lord's glories is that safe casing in which he wants to place the jewels of his intelligence, the jewels of his buddhi, meaning consciousness, meaning mind. I mean, you can take in that sense the heart, basically the essential substance of our antakaran, that we want to place in the Lord's lotus feet. So that's what he is saying. So Srila Prabhupada also in the purport, reverberates his themes. Prabhupada in the beginning talks about how illusory material energy, she keeps us perpetually hankering. Prabhupada says, you know, this is third line. In serving the senses, one is never tired. Even though he may be tired, the illusory energy perpetually forces him to do so without being satisfied. So actually material energy keeps us perpetually hankering. But then nobody is happy with her, but nobody is able to give it up also. You know? Material pleasures don't satisfy, but they don't satiate also. One doesn't get satisfied, neither one gets satiated. Satiated meaning one doesn't give it up. You know? So one of the devotees was sharing a nice story. It's like if you go in front of a machine that offers gold coins, you know, you imagine there's a machine which you go in front of it and it says it offers you gold coins. So you say there and you go in front of the machine and say, please give me one gold coin. Machine says, well, why one? Take two. So you say, okay, please give two. Machine says, why two? Take four. Okay, you say, fine, give four. No, why four? Take eight. Come on. You say, at least, okay, give 8 gold coins. No, why 8? Take 16. You say, finally, forget 16, give me just one. Machine says again, why one? Take two. You know? So actually, this machine only talks. She never delivers. Whenever you ask something, she says, well, why don't you take more? Why don't you take double? But actually, the machine only talks like that. She never offers something. It never offers something. So this is the how Maya works actually. You know, there is only promise given, so much promise given, promise after promise. Oh, you will be able to enjoy so much, but actually nothing is received. You know, putra shisha shruti sukha mrigatrashti rupa vedam kale varam ashesha rujam viroha nirvidyate natu jano yadapeti vidvan Ramanalam madhulavai shamayan durapai. Shruti sukha. Only everybody has heard about that pleasure, material pleasure. Nobody has experienced it. Only Shruti Sukh is there in hearing. So, release from such material energy is only possible with association. Prabhupada says that in the next part of his para, that actually one can only get rid of this material energy by association. Muchkund also praised this in his prayers. Bhavapavargo brahmato yada bhavet janasya tarhi achut sat samagama satsangamo yadhi tadaiva sadgato paravaresho vayijayate mati. He says the stopping of material existence, material sansar can only happen when one comes in satsanga. And in such satsanga only actually paravareshe tvayijayate mati. One's attachment to Supreme Lord will happen. Consciousness will become attached to Supreme Lord. So this is the thing. So if this kind of effect happens on a sadhaka, if he's sincere, if he's in the association of devotees, and he's hearing submissively, then what to speak of those who have experienced Lord's association constantly, in person. So just like Pandavas and all that. Prabhupada speaks about this towards the end of his purport. You know, we can just imagine their, we can't even imagine their separation. Because we, in hearing about the Lord, we are experiencing his sweetness. But these people who have associated with the Lord, the devotees, they are not only experiencing Lord's sausvarya, you know, Lord's being very melodious, his glories as well as his own speech, sausvarya. Suswar se sausvarya, the quality of being suswara, you know, being melodious. So not only that, but they have experienced Lord's saundarya. They have experienced Lord's saukumarya, saurabhya. and Saugandhya. So five tanmatras are there, and for each one of them, Lord is the perfect sense object. He is Suswara, he is Sundara, he is Sukumara, he is having this Saurabhya, so he is Surabhi. That Saurabhya is there, and Saugandha, Sugandha is also there. Lord is most fragrant. So somebody who has experienced this, how great separation they will feel. This is the point of Suta Goswami. He is speaking this particular point like that. So fine. So now the effect on all others, especially the fine. I'll just take one more verse, and then there is description about the ladies of Hastinapur, so that we can take questions before that. Text 13. Sarve te nimishay akshair, sarve te nimishay akshair, tamanodruta chetasah, vikshantah sneha sambandha, vichelus tatra tatraha. All their hearts were melting for him on the pot of attraction. They looked at him without blinking their eyes, and they moved hither and thither in perplexity. So in this manner, all these residents of Hastinapur, Animishai Akshay, with unblinking eyes, they were looking at the Supreme Lord who was now departing, who was leaving. Tam anudruta chetasaha, Prabhupada translates in very eloquent words. All their hearts were melting for him on the pot of attraction. Tam anudruta chetasaha. Following him, literally, following him, their hearts were getting melted. Vikshantah sneha sambandha, and because their hearts were so much bound with affection for the Lord, so looking upon him, vichelu tatra tatraha, they just moved hither and thither in perplexity. Sometimes if there is a great anxiety or perplexity, person just walks back and forth, paces back and forth. So that's what was happening to them. They were not knowing what to do, and just looking at the Lord, they were actually walking back and forth, moving hither and thither. In fact, Anudrut Chetasaha Vijayadhwaj Tirth says that he says they were as Lord was going away from the palaces and from the places where they were staying, to see the Lord, they were going to higher and higher heights in their palaces. So, Lord walked a little bit high. So they went on the first floor to see the Lord. Lord walked further distance. He went further away. They would go on the second floor, and then on the third floor, and then Lord has gone much away. They would go on to the rooftops, terrace, and from there they were trying to see. And once Lord was invisible, their hearts just melted away in the direction that Lord went away. So this is Anudruta Chedasa. So Prabhupada says in purport that actually such madness for the Lord is also possible, Prabhupada says, towards the end of the purport, is not only by personal contact with the Lord, but also by association with his name, fame, form, and quality. So sadhakas like us also do have the hope that by hearing Lord's name, fame, form, and qualities in a submissive way, one will also be able to develop such feelings. And Srimad Bhagavatam trains the conditioned soul to this stage of perfection by submissive hearing from the pure devotee. And this is what Srimad Bhagavatam is meant for. Actually, it is meant to give us that experience of the Supreme Lord by submissive oral reception of Lord's name, fame, form, and pastimes, qualities from Srimad Bhagavatam, from the lips of a bona fide speaker of Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is the point. But Prabhupada says, by submissive hearing, so this is very important, that we hear Bhagavatam submissively, not in the challenging spirit, or not also in a kind of clinical spirit. Clinical spirit means in the matter of a detached study of Srimad Bhagavatam. Like how a doctor studies his patient, he's that's called a clinical study. He just seeing that patient as a body. So similarly, sometimes people study Bhagavatam, a clinical study they will, without investing any emotions. So that should not be the thing. We submissively hear, and we also hanker for developing some attachment for Lord's name, fame, form, and pastimes. So after this, there is explanation about the ladies of Hastinapur. And before that, we'll just pause here and try to take any questions if they are there. Hare Krishna. Any questions? Okay, so I don't see any questions. They are there?
Yes. No, this. One second.
Yes, Prabhu, go ahead.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, it's giving a great echo.
Hare Krishna. One. Sorry, give us 1 second. There's a technical issue.
Prabhu, there's some issue with the microphone. Maybe what you do is you type in the question. Meanwhile, if there is anyone else asking question, he can go ahead. Otherwise, you can type in the question also, and I will try to answer as soon as I see the question. Okay, there is a question: who are Subhadra and Arjuna as Tattva? Who are Subhadra and Arjuna as Tattva? Okay, so this is explained by Srila Jiva Goswami in 10th Canto's commentary. So Subhadra is actually Yogamaya. There is 9 forms of Lord's Yogamaya Shakti, and those 9 different forms. One of those forms is Subhadra Devi. She is manifesting or rather personifying that particular form. So she is Yogamaya. She is Swarup Shakti of the Supreme Lord. And who is Arjuna? Arjuna is actually Arjuna is a Jiva as Tattva, but he is a very special Jiva. He also comes with the Lord whenever Lord performs pastime in many different ways. Like Lord comes as Narayana, he comes as Nara, and wherever Lord performs pastime in his Dwaraka Leela, Arjuna and Pandavas, of course, they appear, they come, they do come. So, but Arjuna is a living entity. He is a Nitya Siddha Jiva, you can say. Nitya Siddhas are, of course, considered always part of Swarup Shakti, But yeah, in that also there is surely a discrimination between a Jiva and somebody who is non-different from Lord Shakti, like Radhika and all the, all the Ashtasakhis and all that. So there is some difference in that also. But point is, yes, he is Jiva. Subhadra was daughter of Devaki, Rohini, other wife of Vasudeva. Well, Srimad Bhagavatam, this is version of Mahabharata where Subhadra is spoken to be daughter of Rohini. But if you see Srimad Bhagavatam, in 9th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, when Vasudeva and Devaki's children are being talked about. So there is a clear verse where it is said that the 8 sons of Devaki are talked about, starting from Kirtiman and all. And then the youngest was daughter named Subhadra. It is written there that Subhadra was the youngest, born after all the 8 sons. So she is considered daughter of Devaki as per Srimad Bhagavatam. But the version of she being daughter of Rohini is surely there mentioned in Mahabharata. So sometimes, Jiva Goswami in Gopal Champu says that whenever you see a difference between Mahabharata and Bhagavatam, he says that one way to explain is, of course, the most famous Kalpa Bhed version. But he also says that on certain points, does Bhagavatam should only be taken as pramana. Of course, what are those points where Bhagavatam is taken to be pramana and Mahabharata, that particular version is kind of considered interpolated, or it's considered non so authentic? Uh, you know, because this is a big discussion about Mahabharata itself. Our acharyas have certain comments on Mahabharata, but yeah, as far as Bhagavatam is concerned, it straight away in ninth canto says that Subhadra is daughter of Devi. Fine. What age did meeting at Kurukshetra solar eclipse took place? Okay, this is what age? I guess meaning age of Krishna probably. What age of Krishna meeting at Kurukshetra solar eclipse took place? So, okay, Jiva Goswami mentions about this that Kurukshetra's solar eclipse pastime took place not much long after Kamsa was killed. He says that um, although this pastime appears very late in 10th canto, but this happened in few years after Kamsa was killed. So what exactly Lord's age? I mean, this calculation is there surely, but somebody just needs to see every pastime at what point it happened. Certain calculations are very clear, but we have to see then. Jiva Goswami is giving some calculations. He talks about how Lord Krishna left Vraja at age of 10 months and 10 years and 7 months. And then he talks also about uh, Lord Krishna 125 years old, and 125 years is his total lifespan, which is Matsya Puran's version. So 89 becomes his age at Kurukshetra war, and 76 becomes his age at Rajasuya. And just before Rajasuya, he had gone to Vraja to meet all the Vrajvasis. You know? So like that, you go back and then you find out at what age Kurukshetra solar eclipse took place. So maybe uh, if I work this out, I can answer this in precise detail. But he does make that comment that it was not long after killing of Kamsa. Okay. Yeah, Gaurlila Prabhu has put that question, which I had said yesterday I will look at. What punishment was given to Ashwatthama after he shot Brahmastra on Parikshit? Okay, so I did go through Mahabharata on this. And Mahabharata has a very different version of punishing Ashwatthama. It talks about punishing Ashwatthama only after he shot the second Brahmastra. So this version is slightly different from not slightly, but quite different from Srimad Bhagavatam. So, acha, 1 second, no? I lost all the chats. No, it's there. Okay, it's there. So this version is different from from Bhagavatam significantly. So what I have done is I have put this question to some of my scholarly friends, and once I get this answer, I'll let you know. Because Mahabharata's version only speaks about Ashwatthama getting punished after he shot second Brahmastra, but that's not how Bhagavatam speaks. So of course, one thing is these pastimes do happen differently in different kalpas, but if there is some further more explanation, if I get, I will surely let you know. Adi Parva of Mahabharata, another question. Adi Parva of Mahabharata says that Satyavati left to forest along with Ambika and Ambalika after Pandu's death and on the advice of Vyasa. So, again, Mahabharata Bhishma Parva says that Bhishma was commander-in-chief for Kauravas for 1 to 10 days of battle. BG 1.2, Srila Prabhupada writes that Duryodhana went to meet commander-in-chief Drona. Is it that BG was spoken after the death of Bhishma? Okay. Bhagavad Gita, was it spoken after death of Bhishma, or was it spoken as it was happening? Live coverage. Was it a live coverage or a recorded coverage, right? So, okay, this is a discussion, and even the Bhagavad Gita verse that speaks dharma kshetre kurukshetre samaveta yusava mamagaha pandavaschaiva kim akurvat sanjaya. So this akurvat is a past tense, atmanepadi, and based on akurvat, the incidents have happened uh, before some time, much before. It's talking about past tense. So actually, these events they have happened in terms of past. That's the version which is commented by of uh, uh, many tikas of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, that it has indeed happened as a past. 10th day was when Bhishma fell, and that's when Sanjay came back and he started describing Bhagavad Gita like that. So if this is so, then how is that we talk about we talk about our acharyas saying that Dhritarashtra was thinking what would be the outcome, and that's how, while thinking like this, he asked that question, isn't it? That what did they do? But if the war has already happened and war has already begun, so how is that he is thinking like this? Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur as well as Baldev do say that he was thinking in his mind that Kurukshetra may affect people in such a way that Pandavas may cancel the whole war itself. But if Bhagavad Gita is beginning to be spoken on 10th day, then war has already begun. So how is that he is thinking like this? So I did write on this question to, uh, I am part of SAC, so I wrote to the scholars at SAC about this particular thing. So this idea that Bhagavad Gita happened in past is surely accepted by most of the commentators. Even our acharyas do not disagree with that, or they don't explicitly say that the whole thing is happening live. No, they never say that. But then, if it has happened in the past, how the analysis, this particular analysis, goes with that, this is something which I am also checking the answer for. So if I get an answer for this, then I will let you know. Fine, I go ahead. Okay. 1 second. Prabhu, I think this, I'm seeing the screen that is shared, but I won't be able to move it up or down, right? So I read up to Pandu's death on the advice of Vyasa. Is there anything written below that? Okay, chat window is where I'm looking at. Last question, what is the reference for Krishna's visit to Vrindavan after killing Dantavakra post Rajsuya sacrifice? Okay, this reference is from Srimad Bhagavatam, and this is a famous reference from Srimad Bhagavatam's 10th canto, where it is said that the verse says that after spending some time to meet his near and beloved ones in Vrindavan, then Krishna came back to Dwaraka. There is another reference in first canto where it is said that Dwarkavasis are talking to Krishna, that they say that, you go to meet your beloved ones to Hastinapur and also to Vraja. So that particular thing is referring to also Krishna's visiting Vraja after he had left Vraja for Mathura. So I can give these references. These are very famous references commented by our acharyas, especially the 10th canto reference where Krishna, after killing of Dantavakra, he came back and he spent 2 months in Vraja and also sent back sent back all the Vrajvasis back to Golok Dham. He made Aprakat. He took them, all of them, to Golok Vrindavan. And in fact, even Lord Krishna went back to Golok Vrindavan. But another form of Krishna's expansion came, and that is the form which returned back to Dwaraka. That's the actual explanation. Krishna stayed with Vrajvasis. He took all the Vrajvasis back to Golok Vrindavan, and Krishna came back in another form to reside at Dwaraka for whatever time further he stayed. So there's a reference for this, and I can give that reference from Canto. Yeah, this is about Satyavati. She was present when Krishna was leaving Srimad Bhagavatam. And Adi Parva says that Satyavati left the forest after Pandu's death on the advice of Vyasa. Well, Prabhu, I am not aware of this reference of Adi Parva, so I will check about this if Mahabharata is saying this particular thing. But Satyavati was surely present when Krishna was leaving, as per Srimad Bhagavatam, because Matsya Sudha Acharyas do say that it's referring to Satyavati and also to Uttara. Both of them, it can refer that way. But this particular reference of Adi Parva Mahabharata, I will check. Fine. I think that's all we have. Yeah, that's all we have in the questions. So we proceed now. Prabhu, some of you whose questions are not answered, or I have said that I will send the references. Please, you can mail me, or Balbhadra Kripa Prabhu can mail me, anyone, and remind me then, because I'm also into some more things, so sometimes I may just forget. So you can mail me and I will try to give those references. Fine, Prabhu, we proceed. So what was the effect on Hastinapur's residents? We'll try to see. No, especially the ladies of Hastinapur. Okay. Text 40. Narundhan Udgala Bashpam Autkantha Devaki Sute Niryatyagaro no Bhadram Iti Syad Bandhavastriyaha. The female relatives whose eyes were flooded with tears out of anxiety for Krishna came out of the palace. They could stop their tears only with great difficulty. They feared that tears would cause misfortune at the time of departure. Okay, so now you hear about the ladies of Hastinapur. Bandhavastriyaha. What happened to them? Bandhavastriyaha Nyarundhan. They checked. What did they check? Udgalat Bashpam. They checked the tears, those were streaming out of their eyes. Why were the tears coming? Autkanthyat. Because of the great feeling of feeling for the Supreme Lord. Prabhupada says, for the great anxiety for Lord. Autkanthyat, snehati shayat, because they had great sneha for Supreme Lord. When did this happen? Devaki Sute Niryati. When Devaki Suta, Lord Krishna, was about to leave now, I mean, this particular moment, where he is departing, he is leaving from that site. So their tears started brimming, their eyes started brimming with tears, and they checked them, they stopped them. Narundhan, literally meaning stambhitavatyaha. Actually, the tears were flowing from their eyes, and literally they solidified those tears. Stambhit kar diya ashruon ko. Stambh bana dete hai na. You make something as a pillar, like that they stopped the tears and solidified those tears. Why? No bhadram iti, na abhadram iti syat. These tears should not cause inauspiciousness for the Supreme Lord. They were feeling that somebody is leaving, Lord is leaving, and if you cry tears while somebody is leaving, it's considered apashakuna. It's considered an inauspicious sign. So they didn't want to have any apashakun while Lord was living. So although their hearts were stricken with anxiety for Krishna, with utkantha that Lord was living, and that's why they could not stop the tears from coming. But then they checked those tears, they froze those tears within their eyes only, thinking that let Lord's journey be auspicious, let there not be any inauspiciousness for Lord, in this particular manner, like that. So if you see in this verse, Udgalantam is the word Udgalanta. So the tears were streaming, the tears were coming out, overflowing. So if you see in Sanskrit, this is known as a Shatranta form. You know, this is a grammatical term meaning a present tense. Means actually the tears continued flowing. Although they tried to stop the tears, they continued to flow actually. You know, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that's when they actually hid those tears by the ends of their saris. By their saris, ends of their saris, they just covered their eyes so that those tears are not seen, because they could not stop those tears actually. They were just brimming. Lord, they were so much grief stricken. Devaki Sute Niryati, there is this word when Lord was about to depart. Devaki Sute Niryati, Bhagavan Devaki Sut ke jane par, nikalne par. You know. So why this Devaki Suta word is used? Vallabhacharya gives an interesting commentary. He says, you know, these ladies of Hastinapur were thinking, actually, this mother Devaki is such a great lady. She has done mahat tapasya. She has done so much of austerity to get Lord Krishna as her son. So just as we are feeling such a great distress that Lord is leaving, this great Devaki is also feeling a great distress in Dwaraka, in separation from the Supreme Lord. So we are thinking about ourselves, but why don't we think about that great Devaki who is so eager to see her beloved son? So let this Lord Krishna go. He has done a great upkar on us by staying with us for so many months. Now, when he wants to go back to his beloved Devaki, his mother, his near and dear ones in Dwaraka, why should we do an apashakun? He has done upkar to us. Why should we do an apakar to him? You know, like this, the ladies were thinking. So let him go back to his mother and his near and dear ones. So that's why they kind of literally solidified those tears. Stambhitavatyaha. You know? So in this particular manner. So Prabhupada also talks about in purport about these ladies and how they thought that it would be a misfortune for Krishna if they cry. So they stopped those tears, although it was very difficult for them. Prabhupada says, therefore they smeared their tears in their eyes and their hearts throbbed. So their hearts were throbbing because they had stopped the tears like that. So Prabhupada also makes this very nice point that actually these ladies who were wives and daughters-in-laws of those who died in battlefield, they never came in personal contact with Krishna. But still, we see that they developed such great affection for the Lord. So actually, whether directly or indirectly, one thinks of Krishna and his name, fame, glories, one will become attached to him. It's not that only by personal contact. It is surely very special where one gets personal contact of the Lord. But even somebody by hearing his glories, just as these ladies, by hearing the Lord's glories, they had not so much, so to say, personally associated with Krishna. They might have seen him sometimes, that's it. But they could not get personal association of Lord Krishna, so to say. Still, they developed such great affection. So actually, for developing loving feelings for Krishna, it's not that one needs that personal association only. If one is fortunate, very great, very fine, but if one is not, one also if he hears about Lord's glories from bona fide representatives of Parampara, and submissively hears and serves the Lord, one will be able to develop affection. We see it in the examples of Mother Rukmini, also in the example of Yajnapatnis. Just by hearing about Lord Krishna, they developed so much love for him, right? Shrutva gunan bhuvana sundara shrunvatante nirvishya karna vivarai haratong gatapam Rupam drasham drashematam akhilarthalabham tvayachyuta vishati chittam apatrapam. You know, Mother Rukmini said, Shrutva Gunan, just by hearing Lord's qualities actually from Narad Muni and from all other great poets that were there in the assembly of King Bhishma's court. So Rukmini Devi developed such great love for Lord. Same way Yajnapatnis, when gopis would go to Mathura to sell, sell off all this butter and all these milk products. So Yajnapatis would hear pastimes of Krishna from them, and just based on that, they became such lovers of Lord Krishna. So actually, sadhakas have a great hope in these personalities. They hearing about their way they developed love, sadhakas also do have a great hope. Of course, our efforts also should be proportional to our aspirations. Sometimes we see that we have great aspirations to develop appreciation for Bhagavatam, Lord's glories, holy name, devotees, but our efforts are not that proportion, in that proportion, right? We want to, when we see somebody is a great relisher of Bhagavatam, we also want to become like them. But then how much effort do we take really to study, to hear, to understand Srimad Bhagavatam? For most of us, some of us may be very great students of Bhagavatam, but for many of us, even sometimes it's difficult to take out time for some days together to hear Srimad Bhagavatam or read Srimad Bhagavatam. But actually, I am here at Vrindavan, and I see that, there are some great souls who are daily they recite and memorize one chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. I was so amazed to see Sanskrit verses. I'm saying there are some great Vidwan devotees. They're devotees, they're not just scholars. And daily they recite and memorize one full chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, not just one verse, or one or two verses. So I was so amazed, actually, the kind of attachment they have for, memorizing and meditating on Srimad Bhagavatam like that. There are people like that. They remember canto after canto, just words by words. So 8 hours, sometimes 6 hours, they study Srimad Bhagavatam. So of course, we do have our services and all that, I understand. But what I meant to say is, from the remaining time, that whatever is available apart from our designated services, actually, if we are really eager to develop appreciation for Lord's message, for his holy name, or like that, that effort also should be proportional. Then we see that we will also be able to develop at least some drop of attachment like this devotees have. Fine, so we move ahead. 15. Mridanga Shanka Bhairyaschа Veena Panava Gomukha Dhundurya Naka Ghantadya Nedu Dundu Bhayastatha. While the Lord was departing from the palace of Hastinapura, different types of drums like the Mridanga, Dhol, Nagara, Nagada as they say, Dhunduri and Dundubhi, and flutes of different types, the Veena, Gomukha and Bheri, all sounded together to show him honor. So these are all different instruments that were played when Lord was departing. So these are all different instruments. 10 kinds of instruments are spoken in this, Mridang, Shankha, Bheri, if you see. And these 10 kinds of instruments fall into 4 different categories. Vallabhacharya does this analysis. If you know, even in English instrument science, musical instrument science, there are 3 different kinds of instruments. There is stringed instruments, there is wind instruments, and there is percussion type instruments. So actually, Vaidika Vadya Shastra has 4 kinds of instruments. They are known as Nadha, Shushihi, Tat, and Ghana. So Nadha are those which are beaten and played, like you have Mridanga and Dundubhi and Nagada and all that. They have typically that skin, you know, and the wooden or brass thing with the skin is tied up and played. So those are percussion kind of instruments. Nadha, Shushihi. Shushihi are those instruments which are wind type of instruments like flutes and all that. Shankha is also that, and flutes and others. Tat are the tantuvadyas, the stringed instruments like veena. Here is a tantuvadya, tat. And ghana. Ghana are the solid instruments like bell, like ghanta. These are solid instruments which, by hitting on one another, they are played. So these four kinds of instruments were played in Lord's reception while Lord was departing. So our Narad Muni, as well as Bharat Muni, gave great details of Vadya Shastras in great details in some of the Puranas like that. So we may refer if you want further details. Fine, we move ahead. Prasada Shikhara Rodha Kurunaryo Didrikshaya Vavushu Kusumai Krishnam Premavrida Smitekshanaha. So these ladies of Vraja, translation. Out of a loving desire to see the Lord, the royal ladies of the Kurus got up on the top of the palace and smiling with affection and shyness, they showered flowers upon the Lord. So now Lord's Pushpabhishek is going to happen with these ladies. So Kuru Naryaha, ये जो Kuru नारियां थी, Prasada Shikhra Rudha, they went on the top of the palaces, Atariyon pe chale gaye, and going on the top of the palaces. Why? The Drikshaya, they had this great desire to see the Lord. They couldn't, they were Kulina ladies, they were very honorable ladies of Kuru. And so they wouldn't mix freely with, obviously with so many of men and public. So still, naturally, because of their desire to see the Lord, the Driksha was there. So they went on top of the palaces to get the darshan of the Lord in full view. And from there, they, Krishnam Kusumaihi Vavrushu, they bathed the Lord, they did abhishek of the Lord with many beautiful flowers. Prema Vrida Smitekshana, smiling at Lord with great love and feeling of shyness and also of great love. So in this manner, these ladies, they were bestowing flowers upon Lord Krishna as he was departing on the road. So, the palaces next to the road, the ladies were on the rooftops and they were bestowing beautiful flowers on Supreme Lord. So Srila Jiva Goswami says that in this verse, there is prema vrida smitekshana. So actually there is vrida, which is shyness, and there is smita, there is smile. So he says that this is talking about two different sets of ladies. Those who are in Shantaras with the Supreme Lord and those who are in the Madhuryaras with Supreme Lord. Those who were feeling, looking at Lord and smiling, they were those who are in Shantaras with the Lord. While those who were in Madhurya Ras, these ladies, they couldn't smile because already the separation has begun. So they are not smiling. So they only are showing, obviously both of them have prema for the Lord. But Vrida is for those who are Madhurya Bhaktas and Smita is for those who are Shantarati Bhaktas. So that is Srila Jiva Goswami's explanation. Of course, apart from this, there were some ladies also in Dasya, and Kunti was in Vatsalya Ras, and Draupadi was in Sakhya Ras with Krishna. So all those things are there. But here, from the point of view of the ladies being talked in this section, Jiva Goswami says the talk is about Shantarati Matis, Shantarati Matyaha, and Madhurya Rati Matyaha or Shringar Rati Matyaha. he says. So those were the two kinds of ladies, they were bestowing upon flowers on Krishna. Vallabhacharya says these ladies were Kulina, and that's how they couldn't go and mix with all the uh, residents and get close to Krishna. So they went on the rooftops. But going on the rooftops, they had this. I mean, they knew that if they shower flowers from the top, Krishna will surely look at them, because this is a natural thing. When the flowers are powered from the top, person obviously sees on the top, and then those ladies knew that Krishna will look at us and he will cast his merciful glance upon us, and that's what they wanted. So very intelligently, they ran to the roof terraces and started bestowing flowers upon Krishna so that they get Krishna's glance. So actually, these kind of subtler expressions to, please somebody, or to, welcome somebody, or to receive somebody, or send off somebody, these subtler expressions, these smiles and all that, they may be sometimes difficult for understanding to somebody who is grown up in a very gross culture, right? Where when you have to greet, you have to be very expressive. Oh, how are you doing? And just embrace and give a big smile and all that. But actually, these are grosser forms of affection. Just a smile, actually, or just a glance can also be a great expression of affection. And these subtler aspects of a culture, it needs some understanding to be able to appreciate such. How by just offering or showering flowers, we see that these ladies are so much pleasing the Lord. And somebody may feel, what is this offering flowers or showering flowers, like that? But these are actually great aspects of a culture. Okay, Prabhupada in purport talks about shyness, vrida, referring to that word. He says that shyness is a particular extranatural beauty of the fair sex, and it commands respect from the opposite sex. So how shyness is actually a great extranatural beauty of a lady, of a woman. And Prabhupada does also speak about how this system was always prevalent uh, in the history, right from Vedic times, and how this shyness is a gift of nature to a woman. And if she's like that, she commands a great respect from the members of opposite sex. Prabhupada also speaks about a sweeper woman, how, just by being properly, shy, the Stri Sulabh Vrida, lady's shyness, she actually commanded such a great respect from even respectable gentlemen. So Prabhupada is remembering that particular incident from his life, while just taking away this shyness and being very, so to say, bold, as they call it, as if it's a very great thing to be bold. Actually, these euphemisms, they carry a very different sense than what it is. You want to call something as shameless, instead you call it bold, and then that becomes a fashionable phenomenon. So this is not a Vedic culture, and Prabhupada is very much pointing it out, saying that how shyness adds to a woman's natural beauty. Of course, in the second paragraph, he also speaks about how this attachment for physical beauty is a great illusion, and that's how he says nobody gets attracted to a dead body. So the spirit spark is what is actually beautiful. Prabhupada brings up that point also, like that. So one should not get attracted by the false beauty. He says that. But there is a way in Vedic civilization in which one can overcome this attraction for false beauty, and that is the proper tie between man and a woman, proper relationship. And what Prabhupada brings up the point is, shyness is a check to that unrestricted mixing of man and woman, and it should be maintained. Once you take away that shyness, it's a disaster. You know, it's a disaster like that. So that should remain. That unrestricted mixing will not happen, and that way one will be able to eventually also come out of the false attractions for physical forms of this world. So Prabhupada does address that relevant point. Okay, 17. Now there is talk about what did the devotees like Arjuna do, and the Brahmanas, other male devotees, what did they do? Sitatapatram jagraha muktadama vibhushitam ratnadandam gudakesha priyatamasyaha. At that time, Arjuna, the great warrior and conqueror of sleep, who is the intimate friend of the most beloved Supreme Lord, took up an umbrella which had a handle of jewels and was embroidered with lace and pearls. So Sitatapatram jagraha Gudakeshaha Sitatapatram jagraha. Gudakesh held this umbrella which was very soothing, or Sita can also mean a very white umbrella. You know, a Sita is black and Sita is white, so as white as milk. So he held such an umbrella, and that umbrella was what? It was not some umbrella with plastic hand or some steel hand. No, Ratna Dandam. It had a handle of jewels, and Muktadama Vibhushitam. From the ends of the umbrella, the pearls were hanging. It was so beautiful that it was there were strings of pearls that were hanging the from the border of the umbrella. Like you see sometimes there's umbrellas for Lord Balaji, right? You see there are pearls hanging from the side. So something similar like that. So Gudakeshaha, Arjuna held this umbrella for Lord, and he is called as Priyaha. He was very dear to Supreme Lord, and Lord was Priyatamasya. Lord was Priyatama for him, or you can say Priyatamasya Priyaha. He was also most dear to the Lord, who was most dear to Arjuna. In this manner, Arjuna held the umbrella while Lord was living. So, Gudakesha word is used. Gudakesha's meaning is one who is a conqueror of sleep. It can also mean one who is conqueror of death. Another meaning of Gudakesha, and most famous meaning in Mahabharata, is Guda Kutila Gudavad Rakta Va Kesha Yasya Saha. One who has his beautiful hairs, which are actually little blackish, reddish, Gudavat Rakta, like that. They have a reddish tinge, Arjuna's hairs. They are black, but they have a reddish tinge. And their Kutila, they are Kutila Kesh. What do you call it in English? These are curly locks of hair, yeah, as you call it. So that's the meaning of Gudakesha. So he had such beautiful hairs, and he was holding the umbrella and taking the Lord further. Srila Vijay Dhwaj Tirth also comments on just her that is there in the last part of the verse. Her, Priyaha Priyatamasya, her. So you see, sometimes I was saying, commentators they comment on something as her. You may just feel, what is this her? But they have a meaning coming from that also. So we should know that the verses of the Acharya, the verses of Vyasadeva or Shukadev, all these people, each word is chosen and it is spoken. None of these words are meaningless. They are spoken with a great insight, and Acharyas do come and reveal those insights to us like that. Sometimes some words are not commented, but that doesn't mean they are meaningless. No, actually each word is divinely inspired, and that's how there are commentaries of pages after pages, trying to describe what those words are actually meaning. So Vijay Dhwaj says that her in this verse means actually that Arjuna was thinking that my Lord, I made you carry or be a charioteer of my chariot. You know? So I made you act as Sarathi. Here you are departing now, and let me take this opportunity to at least carry an umbrella for you. You know, you carried your chariot for me for 18 days. Let me at least take for some time this opportunity to carry an umbrella. And may you forgive my offense for making you my Sarathi. So with that, he, remembering that, he held the umbrella in this manner, like that. So Prabhupada in purport makes very, exposes the poverty of modern times. He says that by the so-called development of industrial enterprises, they are now using pots of gutta parcha, you know. So he says gold, jewels, pearls, necklace, these were being used by Vedic people, Vedic times, Pandavas and all of them. And now you have gutta parcha bottles instead of metals like gold, silver, brass and copper. They are using margarine instead of purified butter. Huh? Butter, purified butter, ghee is gone. Instead, you use margarine, you know, that is just made up some vegetable oil. And 1/4 of the city population has no shelter. So that is quite appropriate, actually, how this situation is there in modern times, poverty. So we move ahead. Uddhava Satyakishchaiva Vyachane Paramadbhute Vikiryamana Kusumaihi Reje Madhupati Pati. So what did Uddhav and Satyaki do? Uddhav and Satyaki, first line it is telling. Uddhav and Satyaki began to fan the Lord with decorated fans, and the Lord, as the master of Madhu, seated on scattered flowers, commanded them along the road. So what did Uddhav Satyaki do? Vyajane Paramadbhute, and you can add Jagruhatu as the verb in that line. So Uddhav Satyaki Jagruhatu, Uddhav and Satyaki held. What did they hold? They held two beautiful Vyajanas, or you know, some places it is also said chamaras, you know, fans or chamaras. That is what they held. And they started fanning the Supreme Lord. And in this manner, by being bathed by the flowers, Kusumai Vikir Yamana, he was being showered, and flowers were getting scattered all over. Reje Madhupati Pati, Lord very much shone brilliantly on the path as he was heading towards Dwaraka. Madhupati उस पथ पर बड़े सुशोभित होके चलने लगे, you know, that is Madhupati hi Pati Reje, you know, शोभाम परम शोभाम प्राप्तवान, भगवान की परम शोभा जो है उसे प्राप्त हो गए भगवान, like that. So here eva word is there. Uddhavah Satyakischa eva, उद्धव और सात्यकी ने ही परम अद्भुत व्यजन हाथ में धारण किए. Means it is said, Acharya says that they actually did not delegate this seva to somebody. Sometimes delegation is considered a great sign of management, right? He is a super delegator. But there are some things to delegate and some things never to delegate. So here Uddhav and Satyaki, although they have their own servants, they didn't delegate it to them that you please fan the Lord. No, they themselves held the fan and they started, you know, fanning the Lord, you know. So these opportunities to serve the Supreme Lord are not for delegation, they are for actually one to do. And if there is more seva, we can also delegate it to others. Vallabhacharya also makes a very good comment on this. He says, Reje Madhupati hi Pati. So he says Madhupati is Lord Krishna. So actually it was like Vasant had appeared. So Vasanta, if you see, Vasanta means there is a great blooming of flowers, great blooming of all the, you know, beautiful flowers. It's the spring season, right? So flowers get showered in Vasanta. So similarly, Madhupati was like Vasanta, because Vasant, as you know, is a Rutu with 2 months, Madhu and Madhava, Chaitra and Vaishakha. These two are Vasant Rutus. So that's why Vasant is also known as Madhupati, that meaning the master of Madhu month, Madhu and Madhav months. So here Madhupati also refers to Vasant because he was getting bathed by the flowers of Hastinapur ladies. I mean the flowers thrown by them. So it was like Vasant had come. Text 19. अश्रूयन्ताशिष सत्यास्तत्र तत्र द्विजैरिताः नानुरूपानुरूपाश्च निर्गुणस्य गुणात्मनः. It was being heard here and there that the benedictions being paid to Krishna were neither befitting nor unbefitting, because they were all for the Absolute, who was now playing the part of a human being. So Ashruyanta were heard, what was heard? Ashishah Satya, there were benedictions being heard, there were benedictions being sung, Swastyastyu, Swasti Vachan was being done, and benedictions were being offered. By whom? Tatra Tatra Dvijayrita, by the Brahmanas. Brahmanas were chanting auspicious benedictions, Swasti Vachan they were doing for the pleasure of the Lord. When those benedictions were being offered, they were nanu rupa anurupascha. They were actually anurupa, na anurupa. They were appropriate and they were not appropriate. They were inappropriate. So benedictions were appropriate for the Lord, but they were also not appropriate for the Lord. Nirgunasya gunatmana. Why? Because Lord is nirguna, and because he is gunatman. So we'll see this, what is being said. Why the benedictions which were being said by the Brahmanas were appropriate and or befitting and not befitting? See, because when these Brahmanas are singing benedictions for the Lord, like Swastyastu and Sukhi Bhavet and all that other benedictions, many other benedictions that are given. Actually, Lord is always having those things. He is never to possess anything, isn't it? He always has those qualities. May you always be Vijayi, Vijayi Bhava. Well, Lord is always Vijayi. So what is the meaning of that benediction? It's not appropriate. Sukhi Bhava, may you always win, may you always be happy. Well, Lord is always happy. He is Nityananda. He is always happy, like that. So when they were offering the benediction, Swastyastu, may there be all auspiciousness. Well, there is always auspiciousness for the Lord. So for Nirguna Lord, one who never has any material qualities, he is always having transcendental qualities. He is never affected by any material qualities of auspiciousness, inauspiciousness, success, failure, victory, defeat. He is beyond that. Nirguna, literally meaning having qualities which are free from the material gunas. Nirgata gunebhyah gunaha yasmin saha nirguna. Means actually one whose qualities are, they are not material, they are completely spiritual. So for such a Lord, what is the use of benediction? He always has those benedictions. But at the same time, giving blessings was also anurupa. Why? Because gunatmanaha, because that Lord was actually doing his Narakriti Brahma Leela, Manushya Leela, or Vishwan Chakravarti Thakur says, from the Madhurya perspective, the benedictions were anurup, the benedictions were very fine. But from Aishwarya perspective, the benedictions were inappropriate, because he always possesses those benedictions, right? But from the Madhurya perspective, the benedictions were very much appropriate, because Lord's nature is Brahmanyatva and Prema Vashyatva. He is actually controlled by Brahmanas who have love for him, and also Prem Vashyatva, devotees who have love for him. So literally when they say Sukhi Bhavet or Vijayi Bhava, because the Brahman is saying that indeed Lord is accepting it and it will happen, because he is taking that devotee's desire and he is going to fulfill that desire. So may you be all happy. This is a desire expressed by those Brahmanas. So Lord makes those benedictions as Satya. That's why those Ashishas are known as Satya Ashishaha. Because he is Prema Vashyatva and his Brahmanyatva. He is so devoted to Brahmanas that he will make those words come true. You know, although from the Aishwarya angle, he always has those qualities, but he will manifest those pastimes in his Leela by the benedictions of his devotees and his Brahmana, devotees who love him. So this is the understanding actually why those benedictions are Anurupa, you know. So Lord manifests and unmanifests those pastimes. He may manifest a pastime like Dhira Shanta in a Leela with Yudhishthir, and a pastime like Dhiroddata in killing demons. You know, these are two different pastimes. Dhir Shant is someone who is very humble and greatly sense controlled and great Vinaysheel, while Dhiroddata is one who is very proud and he will speak boastfully. So Krishna manifests such qualities when he is dealing with demons. He boasts in front of demons and he shows a transcendental envy, wants to smash them. So that is one quality. And Dhirashant is another quality where he is most respectful, most gentle, and all that. But these pastimes, these qualities are manifested by the Lord by his devotees' desires, you know. Based on the reciprocation by the rasa of those devotees, he manifests those pastimes. So that's why these benedictions of Dvijas, they are called as Satya, and they were very much Anurupa because of his being devoted to Brahmanas and being devoted to the Supreme Lord. You know? So Prabhupada also addresses this in his purport. He says that benedictions for Krishna were appropriate and inappropriate. But he says, when it comes to transcendental world, there is nothing that is contradictory. All contradictions get resolved in Krishna. You know, tasmin viruddha samanyam tasmin nachitram. Actually, even if somebody says anything for Krishna, you know, that actually can become a proper truth in Krishna. Like Prabhupada gives example of calling Krishna as Makhan Chor. But even though Krishna is called as thief, still that becomes a great glory, that becomes a great fame for him. He's worshipped as the Makhan Chor, you know. So this is how we see that whenever demons criticize Krishna, you know, like or some proud people like Indra, sometimes they criticize Krishna, Vachalam, Stabda, Balish. But we see there is always a Saraswatartha. Saraswati allows those words to be spoken, but when they get deposited at lotus feet of Krishna, they have a different sense completely. You know, they become glorifications of Krishna. It's like throwing a disgustable thing at Lord Krishna. I mean, some demon may do it, but then it turns out to be the most fragrant flower garland. So that's how anything of this world is spoken about the Lord, you know, that becomes actually a glorification of the Lord. So that's why nothing is actually, nobody can really abuse the Lord, in fact. You know. Saraswati will just not allow, it will take up a different meaning. You know. So in this manner. So point is, in this way, the benedictions were favorable or rather anurup and not anurup. They were befitting and not befitting because of Lord's two different natures of Madhuri and Aishwarya. Fine. So after this, there is the beautiful talk of Hastinapur ladies. And this section is a section which will take another 1 hour to complete this chapter. So I will do this tomorrow. I will like to stop here because this is another section beginning of Hastinapur's ladies glorification. But at this point, if there are any questions, you may ask. And in case others have services, they may please proceed. Hare Krishna. Are there any questions, Prabhu, on whatever we have discussed? I guess today we discussed how many? 14 verses probably.
Prabhuji, there's one question.
Yeah,
Here in this verse, it was mentioned Madhupati.
yeah,
So that Madhupati, we have heard Madhusudan. So Madhupati, like, what is the meaning of that?
yeah. Okay, so Madhupati is referring to actually the master of Madhupati, the Madhus. So this Mathura was ruled by. You understand? Mathura was ruled by
Madhuri.
Madhu, King Madhu, long back. So that's why Mathura is known as also Madhupuri, and the one who is the master of Mathura is known as Madhupati. That's the meaning of Madhupati.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Fine, Prabhu. So I guess there are no questions, and we are done for today. Okay, there is a question. Was Uddhav in Hastinapur with Krishna and accompanied him to Dwaraka? Yes, Uddhava was with Krishna, and he also accompanied him to Dwaraka. Yes, Uddhava would, in fact, many times accompany Krishna at these different places, Hastinapur and all that. But after this, Krishna is going to have 36 years of pastimes in Dwaraka. I mean, after this particular episode, after Kurukshetra war is over. So naturally, Uddhava is there with Krishna in Dwaraka. And he does travel with Krishna to Hastinapur and all these places. Yudhishthira is not mentioned in 1.9, oh, 910. Okay. Yeah, actually, yeah, Yudhishthira is, I mean, it is very obvious. If you see the next verse talks about Partha Saheran, right? What's the next verse? If you see 11, 12. Tasminyastya dhyah Partha Saheran Viharam Katham. So this Partha is referring to Pandavas, so which also includes Yudhishthira. So anyway, there is Adayah here. Matsya Sutta Adayah also in this 9 and 10 is there. So that includes all other people also. But Pandavas are, of course, foremost. They are there. That's why in the next verse it is said, Partha Katham Sahare Viharaham Sahare Saheran. So Yudhishthira is there in that, in those Pandavas. Partha. Okay, Prabhu. So I think we should end here. Thank you all very much. And tomorrow we will end this chapter and also begin with the next. Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.